Chase Elliott got a really bad throwback for Darlington weekend. His teammates got really good ones. We'll talk a couple other throwbacks. Plus, IndyCar's TV ratings for thermal this past weekend were horrible. Welcome back to Break Hard. I'm Matt. Before we get into what we want to talk about today, a little bit of news. I will be on the NASCAR Weekly podcast tonight at 8 p.m. on Eric Estep's channel. I'll be joining Eric, Iceberg, along with Danny to talk about what happened this past weekend at Homestead. Really excited to hop on and talk with those guys. 8 p.m. Eric Estep's channel. I'll put a link in the description below. Now getting into today's topics, Chase Elliott got a Darlington Throwback on Tuesday. His sponsor Unveils, along with Hendrick Motorsports, unveiled his throwback. And it left a lot of people confused because when you look at it, I can give you a bunch of guesses. Majority of people probably not going to get it. That Unveils paint scheme that they showed off is a throwback to Ken Schrader's 1994 number 25 Kodiak paint scheme. And they kind of look alike. They look alike in the same way that movies will say inspired by true events. So there's some realm of truth in here, but there's a lot of fictionalized material in here. They're from the same family. They're not twins, and typically throwbacks should kind of look like twins. Maybe not identical, but really, really close. And in this case, it's, it kind of looks like a third cousin to it. There's some resemblance. You're like, okay, I can kind of see in your family tree where that would come from, but not necessarily the same thing at all. And a lot of it comes down to Unveils because they absolutely wanted to make sure that their brand colors, their brand guidelines were followed here, and that does not make for a good throwback. Never has, never will. Now, last year, Unveils, credit to them, they did a phenomenal throwback with Chase Elliott to Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s National Guard paint scheme. Really well done, knocked that out of the park. This year, they come back and they want to stick to their brand guidelines, and it looks atrocious, if we're being honest here. The green is just completely off. They need to redo that. The grays are off, the numbers off. They didn't even extend the bumper color all the way around. It's perplexing on how they missed it by this much. And it's frustrating because I know some people are like, oh, kill throwback weekend. They should just scrap it. If not everybody's going to do it and they're not going to do it right, then don't do it at all. Listen, I'm never going to get worked up over doing a throwback paint scheme here, but I would at least like to see them do it correct. Like if you're going to do it, do it. But if you're not, then don't just kind of, half-ass it here in a sense. So yeah, it was a bit disappointing. For Chase, I feel like his throwbacks are always super hit or super miss. And it's probably frustrating being a Chase Elliott fan. In the meantime, though, his Hendrick Motorsport teammates of William Byron and Kyle Larson showed off their throwbacks on Wednesday, and they absolutely knocked him out of the park. William Byron will be running Jeff Gordon's 2015 Homestead finale, the last race in the 24 car for him. Obviously, he drove some races in the 88 and 2016, but his last race in the 24 car was that silver base color with the flames on it from Exalta. Absolutely looked phenomenal. He was racing for a championship that year in the Final Four at Homestead, and now that's what William Byron's going to drive at the Darlington Throwback weekend, and it looks really, really good. Helps that the same sponsors on the car as well, but they got it. They nailed it. Is Lewis Hamilton going to be there? Probably not, but it really cool. They just recreated the whole day there for William Byron. Overall, that is a phenomenal looking paint scheme. Yeah, everybody's going to complain about the numbers being moved up on the door. Again, I am not about to get worked up over that. We talked about it on here a bunch. I know a lot of people constantly are like, that's the one thing NASCAR needs to change. Listen, I'm more interested in making the on-track product better than what the, numbers look like on the side of the car. I get it from a historical, standpoint and from a purist. When it comes down to it, I'm one of the biggest NASCAR racing purists out there, and I just don't care about where that number placement's at. I just want to see good racing, and they nailed it with this one. So hats off to them for that. Then on Wednesday afternoon, Kyle Larson was in Darlington to unveil what his throwback paint scheme was. And last year, they did a really good job with that Terry Labonte Kellogg's throwback, the traditional red and yellow, the one that everybody recognizes there. And guess what? He's doing another Texas Terry throwback again in 2025 to Terry Labonte's 2003 Darlington paint scheme, that Tony the Tiger stripe paint scheme, the blue and orange one, as you can see right here. And again, they nailed it because HendrickCars.com is willing to allow them to change the font and, contort their logo to fit what it needs to look like to match what the old, version of it looked like when it was Kellogg's in 2003. And Terry was there with him to unveil his car, and then Kyle unveiled his car, and it looks really good. The blues are slightly off. I will say that. The blue is definitely off when you see them in person here, and part of that is maybe because of the Hendrick brand guideline, but in the gist of nailing it, they got it really, really correct once again, and they're going to sell a ton of diecast with it as well. Terry, though, went to victory lane in 2003 with that car. Maybe Chase Elliott will do the same here. remains to be seen. But Hendrick Motorsports, for everybody said, oh, they don't make good throwbacks, which is confusing because they do actually make good throwbacks, just not usually for Chase Elliott. They, once again, hit a home run with their 2 other cars. Continuing on with some of the throwback news, on Tuesday, we got to see what Denny Hamlin's throwback is going to look like, and he is doing a Carl Edwards off his depot throwback on his number 11 car, and it looks really, really good. They did a phenomenal job with that one as well. They kept it. They got the right colors. They got the right everything. It looks good. You know exactly what it is when you see it. Then down in the Xfinity Series, you have Jeremy Clements in that 51 car doing a Harry Gant throwback. You can never go wrong with a Harry Gant throwback, and they absolutely nailed it with theirs as well. Additionally, you have Parker Retzlaff over at Alpha Prime doing a Morgan McClure number 4 Kodak throwback, because he's the 4 car, of course. And it, again, looks really, really good. It's not hard to do good throwbacks, but it is hard for some people. So overall, I think I've liked what we've seen so far this year. Austin Cindric has a good one. Josh Berry has a really good one as well. That Lotus Jim Clark throwback. So yeah, I think that we've got a pretty good collection of them going forward. I'd like to see a few more come out, and I'm sure we will in the coming weeks. But so far, outside of Chase Elliott, most of them have been pretty good. Now we have to talk about IndyCar and their absolute horrid viewership this past weekend at Thermal Club. Thermal Club turned into a house of horrors when it comes to viewership, because in the 3 p.m. window, when they went head-to-head against NASCAR, IndyCar on Network Fox drew 704,000 viewers, down from the 778,000 viewers they had last year on NBC, and down over half of what they had for their opening race of the season at St. Pete, where they drew just under 1.5 million viewers. They lost over half of their viewing audience from race one to race number 2. Meanwhile, NASCAR, which again, like I said, was going head to head, was over on the cable side of Fox Sports on FS1. They drew 2.46 million viewers, over three times as many viewers as what IndyCar had. To add insult to injury for IndyCar, the Formula One Chinese Grand Prix, which was on at 3 a.m. Eastern time. The only other thing on at 3 a.m. Eastern time were Joe Francis commercials back in the day when I was a kid, and just absolute reruns of Frasier and whatever else. There's nothing on at 3 a.m. because people aren't awake. But ESPN was able to draw 824,000 people to watch the Chinese Grand Prix in the middle of the night. IndyCar on at a prime time slot. Not prime time in the sense of 7 p.m. and on, but a prime slot in that Sunday window. And they drew 704,000. Insult to injury, Professional Bowlers Association the day before drew more than IndyCar did on Sunday as well. The Truck Series race on Friday night from Homestead on Fox drew 900,000 viewers, 200,000 more than what IndyCar got. The Xfinity race drew over 1 million viewers. IndyCar just continues to flounder, and it's really frustrating because IndyCar is a phenomenal product. It is some of the best racing on the planet, and they can't do anything to get out of their own way. They don't market very well. They continue to have just this dumb back and forth on whether or not they should have a new car. They should have a new car. They absolutely need to have a new car, but they probably won't for another decade at this point. And then you just have the inability from the network partner to show what is happening during the race. So it wasn't Fox's fault that they cut out for 14 laps and because of the power outage at the racetrack. That's not their fault. But what is their fault is the fact that we missed a lot of the on-track action. I saw Graham Rahal calling Nathan Brown from the Indy Star negative because Nathan pointed out all the things that people have mentioned. The race at Thermal was not good. It felt like a pandemic race. There was nobody there. There was very few fans in attendance, and it looked like these cars were just doing a test session around the desert. And for the most part, it was a really uncompelling race. Yeah, Graham is right. There was high tire degradation. Yeah, that's 100% true. Made for an interesting strategy. At the same time, he said there's tons of battles on the track. We didn't see him at home. We just didn't. We didn't see a lot of the things that were happening there. And maybe it was a compelling race in person, but on television, it was not. And yeah, Alex Palou put on a heck of a drive in the last 15 laps, but do 4 good corners of a battle with Christian Lundgaard and then him passing Pato O'Ward with relative ease and gapping him by 10 seconds make for a good race? No, not necessarily at all. It's just not a very fun track for the viewer at home to watch. And then you throw in the fact that there's definitely a large sentiment of fans that aren't fans of the Thermal Club and everything that it exists, that it stands for, and kind of the whole reason that they're there. And you kind of turned a lot of people off from it. Plus, you're going head-to-head against NASCAR, and you're going head-to-head against one of the biggest sports days on the entire calendar, that being the opening weekend of the NCAA tournament. And you're going to try to go up against a game that's going to draw like 7 to 8 million viewers, also on network, and you're just not going to succeed here. They should have run the week prior and led into Selection Sunday into that show. and probably would have had a better number at that. But going against NASCAR when you're trying to compete for motorsport eyes is just not going to work when you're IndyCar. And why Fox put the two of them head to head is astounding. It's baffling. It's very, very curious why they thought that was a good idea. Oh, the rising tide lifts all ships. Not when the rising tide is looking at one side and not the other one. What are we doing here? You can't, like, I had to double TV it up in the family room. Yeah, not everybody has that luxury, right? And like some people are just going to have to pick, which one they're going to watch, and majority of people pick the NASCAR side of things there. So yeah, big time bummer for IndyCar. They deserve better. They have a really good racing product. Not every race is a banger, right? Even on the NASCAR side of things. Formula One's race at the Chinese Grand Prix was an absolute snoozer. Oscar Piastri won. That's great for him. But outside of that, that race was like a 24 on the rating scale. It was cheeks, as I like to say sometimes. It was not good. The IndyCar race, I think it was like a 49. It wasn't great. It wasn't bad. It was there. It existed. The NASCAR side of things, that was a really solid race. At Homestead, and yeah, IndyCar just can't seem to promote themselves and get them in front of the eyeballs that they deserve to be in front of. You would think that being on network would help them draw like 1 million viewers every single week. And boy, do they miss the mark here. So we'll see what happens at Long Beach. April 13th, I believe, is the next time that they're on track. We'll see what the rating is after that, but hopefully it's better because they deserve better. They just have to figure out how to be better at this point. So let me know in the comments what you think about the throwbacks, as well as IndyCar's ratings and how bad they were this past week. Like and subscribe to the channel. Follow me on TikTok at BreakHard, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at BreakHardBlog.